Eurostat is een instelling van de Europese Unie die belast is met het opmaken van statistieken en met de uitvoering van het communautaire statistische programma. De volgende spreker is er Statistical Officer, verantwoordelijk voor nuts classification. Hij gaat daar zo meteen dieper op in. Behalve dat schreef hij ook een boek, een fantasyboek. Ik weet niet of dat ook in de foyer te vinden zal zijn, maar zoek misschien later eens op zijn naam. Geef hem een hartelijk applaus. Oliver Muller.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with you and to talk about one of the most innovative and beautiful regions in Europe, the Münsterland, my home region in northwest Germany. No, I know. No, instead we're going to talk about one of the economically most successful regions in Europe, which is London. Okay, but not all the regions in Europe have recovered from the economic crisis so quickly like London and like the Münsterland, by the way. We also have regions which suffered much more and for much longer time, like Athens. And yes, of course, we're going to talk about the region of Brussels capital too. But a Belgian colleague of mine told me, whenever you talk about Brussels, you also have to talk about our great, beautiful sister, which is Paris. And if Paris is a great, beautiful sister, we have, of course, also the other one, Brussels, here in the Christmas edition. So we will look a bit how Brussels performs in official statistics, and to put it a bit into perspective, I have chosen a couple of regions so that we see how it benchmarks against the other ones. As other regions, I've chosen the Münsterland, not only because it's my home region, but it's a region of intermediate population density, what we call it. It's not completely urban, it's not completely rural. It has a lot of rural areas, but also some small and medium-sized cities, and is as such very typical for European regions. We have at the top end of economic power inner London. We have Attiki with Athens, a region which suffered tremendously from the Lehman Brothers breakdown and everything which followed. You're aware of that, and which can be found now at the rather lower end of the economic power scale. And we have Paris because of Paris and Brussels. So let's start. Who's the smartest? Here measured by patent applications per million inhabitants, and the answer is obvious. I don't even need to show it maybe, but the smartest people, of course, come from the Münsterland. Brussels is not bad either, but you see Münsterland is first. But I have to admit that I had to look quite a while to find a data set and a reference here which prove my point. Because if we look at the timeline patent applications from 2003 till 12, the image is slightly different. You will notice three things. Ile-de-France with Paris is very strong in patent applications. We will have a race for the third place between London and Brussels. And we can also see the impact of the financial crisis, but a bit delayed for patents, because it always takes a couple of years to produce a patent. And you will see it's not 2008, it comes a bit later. At the beginning, 2004, Brussels overtakes London. 1 year later, London overtakes Brussels, but the empire strikes back and Brussels will stay on place 3. 2008, we have the crisis. 2009, it starts to be a bit wonky. 2010, figures go down. Then we have total decrease in 2011 and 12. Yes. Attiki with Athens has a problem here, as you might see, because the Greek economy was never the most innovative one, and so it's very prone to economic problems. And who's really the smartest? This is another graph, a scatter plot. We have here all the regions of those 5 countries at that particular regional level. The blue regions are the Belgian ones. Well, as you can read, purple is UK, green is France, yellow is Greece, red is Germany. On the x-axis, we have human resources in science and technology. On the y-axis, we have high-tech patent application. Because, well, you need to know, in the Münsterland, our main occupation is guarding cows, and while guarding cows, we do not produce so many high-tech patents. As visible here, Münsterland is not scoring so well. The 2 red dots at the top are the German regions where the car manufacturers sit. And we all know from the news there are sometimes very innovative in different domains. The blue one is Vlaams-Brabant, also very nice. Paris scores extremely well here. It's a quite innovative region, we know that. London is interesting because they have a lot of human resources in science and technology, but relatively few patent applications, high-tech patent applications. The people in London seem to be busy with other things. Brussels, the region of Brussels, scores very well in both dimensions, far ahead of most of the other regions in the other countries. And, well, Münsterland we better skip. Attiki, Essence, you can also see the problems that they have here. To be smart is nice, to be rich is even nicer. Who's the richest? Timeline 2006 until 13, measured by GDP per capita, so gross domestic product per inhabitant. The data is not complete because the system of public accounts has been revised a couple of years ago, and so the back data comes in piece by piece. But we see already that London, our regions are the ones with the black border around the dot. London is very strong. 2009, we see a decrease already in all the regions, but 2009 Belgium comes in, 2010 Germany, and those regions are already recovering from the crisis, as are France and UK. Just not Greece, which declines until 2013. Actually, the Greek economy only recovered since, well, last year in principle. But we see London, extremely high scores, so we can't compete against them. There are very few regions in Europe which actually can. But Brussels is on this scale, according to this data, also very strong, which means from this data set alone, it looks like a very wealthy region, far ahead of all the German and the French regions. And, well, it should only have rich inhabitants. Don't know if you noticed it, but from this data set alone, it looks like everything is okay in the region of Brussels. But what is this? Employment rate. Mr. van der Motten has already indicated the problem a bit. We have very high GDP, but employment rate, well, in Münster, it's extremely high at 75%. You cannot hide from work if you live in the Münsterland. So if you intend to move there after this presentation, don't say I didn't warn you. London, Paris, everything fine, very high rates, but in Brussels, 58%. That is amazing. That is an extraordinary low value. Much closer to the really low end of economic power than it is to the other regions. And this indicates a problem that was already discussed. We'll come back to that in a second. But first, I want to show you a couple of other things. The first is, what do you do if you have a lot of time, if employment rates are low? Well, you typically produce children. So we're going to have a look at who's the most reproductive. On the x-axis, we have the crude rates of population change, which includes the effects of migration. On the y-axis, we have fertility rates. The green dot at the top is French Guyana. It's where they seem to have some particular expertise in the production of babies. France in general is pretty good with fertility rates. As we know, it's one of the best countries in Europe. Paris, fine too. UK is also not bad with a fertility rate, but not in London. Once again, the people in London seem to be busy with different things. But Brussels, Belgium is also okay. It's not bad. Well, production of children is not a strong point in Germany, as you can see, and in Greece. Well, if you are in the mess financially, of course, you do not produce a lot of children. That's normal. The migration statistics do not yet include, of course, the current migration situation. I think that will be the topic a bit later, but it's not yet included in these figures. The most dangerous, we need to win somewhere at least. Here measured by people killed in road accidents. Münsterland is 0.1, the others are 0.2. That tells us two things. First, German are the better car drivers, and second, it might be a bit more secure to live in a not so urban area, which is, I think evident. Which is the most beautiful region, after all, measured by stays in tourist accommodations? Well, we cannot compete against Paris, which is on the top, which is first. Second is, with a huge gap, is London. Would be interesting to correlate that to weather conditions. My region, the Münsterland, well, not so interesting apparently. So the top dot in the red line in Germany is Upper Bavaria. I never understood why people go to Upper Bavaria if they could go to the Münsterland, but okay. Brussels, well, Belgium in general, there's some room for improvement. Here the guys from BSI, you should look a bit into your tourism industry. I think there's something you can do. Greek values are also quite low, but they recovered since then, so it's a bit improving there. Small look at the Europe 2020 indicators, one of the priorities of the European Union's work. The region of Brussels compared to the EU average, very nice to read, I know. What we can see once again is a very high rate of GDP per capita per head. It's actually more than twice as high than the EU average, which is a lot. It's really huge. What we can see also is that the employment rate, as we have seen, is remarkably low. Unemployment rate, of course, the other side of the medal, is very high. We have also elevated levels of young people unemployment, of early school leavers. That is the same problem. All of these kinds of data, we have this problem. Young people, nice and educational and training, they are all at an elevated level. Well, a bit too much. But you have quite good levels of education in general over the average. How does that work together? The high GDP on the one hand side and these problems on the employment market on the other hand side. This was also nicely shown by Mr. van der Motten. One of the effects is the effect of commuting, which contributes to this situation, because we have a lot of people who live outside of Brussels, commute to the city every day, generate the GDP in the region, in the city, but takes the money out and spend it elsewhere. And by that effect, the level of GDP is overstated in principle by commuting in Brussels. So it's a city or a region which looks very wealthy, but might not be so wealthy in the end if you look a bit in the details. This is another interesting thing, quality of life. It's something new because it measures subjective indicators, not all this objective stuff like population and GDP and all these things. I brought you as an example the overall life satisfaction. There are many more under this quality of life project. Disadvantage is we only have the data so far by country, not yet regionalized. That would be one of our dreams. That's a project for the future. But Belgium as such scores in this scale very well. It's close to the top, to Denmark, Sweden and Finland. It's above EU average, far ahead of the bottom line, which is Bulgaria. So in general, people in Belgium seem to be rather happy. For us guys at the EU, the region of Brussels is one out of 270 something NUTS 2 regions, one out of 1,300 NUTS 3 regions. Now what is NUTS? NUTS is a nomenclature of territorial units for statistics. The whole territory of the European Union is a bit split, is organized in several territorial levels. The first one is the member state level with the national borders. The second one, the NUTS 1 level, is the big building blocks of member states. In your case, it's Flanders and La Wallonie. The NUTS 2 levels is, in Belgium, it's the provinces, and the NUTS 3 level, the arrondissement. And this region of Brussels capital appears on NUTS 2 and NUTS 3 level for us. Brussels is also one out of 1,000 plus cities in the EU. A city definition in our case is an aggregation of population of a particular density above 50,000, plus minus, depends a bit on the particular circumstances in the countries, but that's it. Well, that's it. Thank you very much. Don't forget to pay us a visit on the web and EC Europa Eurostat. All the data I've shown to you and many more data sets are there available, publicly accessible, free of charge, including metadata, explanation, how it's done, methodology, who delivers what and why, and all this kind of stuff you can find. You can combine the indicators as you want, display them as a map in these scatter plots, bar charts, whatever you want. And we have special sections on regions and cities. And I also want to hint to our sister DG Regio, regional policy, which also has a lot of information on cities and regions. Thank you, and I wish you a happy evening.